The Dolphins GM Chris Grier has some decisions to make. When you look at a quarterback who's had 4 winning seasons, has led Miami to back-to-back playoffs for the first time in 20 years. He's led the NFL in passing yards the last year and passer rating the year before. I want you to tell me where you see Chris Grier going with Tua. Does he stay a long-term Dolphin? I mean, back in January, Chris Grier even said that the goal is to have Tua as a long-term institution in Miami. So do you think he gets paid? Do you think that's best for the team?
I don't. This is one of the toughest decisions that has to be made in the NFL. Chris Grier, for better or worse, is tied to Tua because he drafted him. We always say GMs, when they draft their quarterback, they're tied to it. It's like in Chicago, Ryan Poles, he didn't draft Justin Fields. So it's way easier to move off of him and draft Caleb Williams and for the ownership to give you more runway because they're like, okay, go get your guy and see what happens. That's basically your tenure as a GM comes down to, do you get the right quarterback? That's it. That's the only thing that matters. That's just the way it is. Chris Grier drafted Tua over Justin Herbert. Okay. Obviously, in hindsight, I think we all know that was a mistake. In the moment, not a lot of people were saying take Herbert over Tua. So for better or worse, Chris Grier is tied to Tua. I don't know if Grier is able to move on from him after this year and go a new route. Maybe he could because of the success they've had with Mike McDaniel. But let's be honest, that success is kind of almost a mirage. Yeah, they've been successful. Yeah, they made the playoffs. But particularly last year, when you go back and look at their games, they went 11-6, but they beat up on poor teams. Anytime they played a good football team, they got their teeth stomped in. Remember, it was a narrative all last year. We were like, okay, but they got to play a good team this week. Can they beat them? Nope. Okay, the next time. But can they beat the Eagles? No. Can they beat the Chiefs? Nope. The only good team they beat was the Dallas Cowboys. That is it. So I also think Tua's numbers are kind of inflated by McDaniel's system. I think McDaniels gets the absolute most out of Tua. I like Tua. I think he's obviously a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Miami's at a crossroads where they have to ask themselves, are we happy rolling forward with this, or do we want to go title hunting? Because can you win a Super Bowl with Tua Tagovailoa? I don't know. I really don't know if you can in the AFC. If you do, you got to get home field advantage and be the 1 seed. So part of me thinks you should keep him, and you should probably sign him, because if you don't, where else are you going to go? I know I'm being broad here, but it's like, if you don't go with Tua, you have to have another option.
And Miami has 0 options outside of Tua right now because they've done a whole lot of offseason work, right? And to try to kind of boost this team and get them to hopefully where they need to be for the next step.
They're in cap hell too.
The next step being win a playoff game.
Right.
Because they seem to not do it.
Correct.
I am in the camp of keep Tua, not just because you really kind of have to, you don't have any other pivot, right? But also I know last year the teams that they beat were not substantial, and you could say that they were weaker opponents. They're still NFL teams, right? And some of these NFL teams beat other good teams in the NFL that same season. So my point is, Tua's taken the Dolphins further, with Mike McDaniel as well, further than the Dolphins have been in 2 decades.
Yeah.
That says something. I don't care if it's weak teams or not, right?
I agree.
To even be in the conversation of playoffs, and the question's really not, do we pay Tua? It's how much do we pay him? When you look at the top quarterback salaries right now, you got guys like Burrow making $55 million, Justin Herbert, who obviously was passed up for Tua, making $52.5, Lamar Jackson $52. Where does Tua fall into this kind of range? You also look at Kirk Cousins, who's making, what, 30, 35 mil?
Kirk is making 45, yeah.
45, and then Kyler Murray is making 46.1. Where does Tua fall? What would you offer him? Where do you think what could you offer him to keep him satisfied, satiated, and ready to play for your organization going forward?
I don't know if I've ever kept anyone satisfied and satiated. I'll make sure to ask my wife this evening. Maybe one. I don't know about both. We'll see how he can do it. Look, this is really where the discussion comes in, because I think the whole move off Tua thing, okay, great. If we have a better option, like if they draft a quarterback this year, just say they drafted, like, I've seen Joel Klatt, who I love, covers college football, covers the draft. Joel Klatt, awesome. He says he thinks Miami should draft Michael Penix and use him as to move on from Tua. Maybe that would work. I'm not so sold on that myself, but if they drafted a quarterback, let him sit, whatever, and then turned it over, that's fine. But you can't move off Tua unless you know you have a better option. And it's not like any of these other guys are going to become available, okay? It's not like you're going to go get Burrow or Herbert or Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, any of them. So assuming you don't have a better option, because as you said, regardless of who you're beating, you're still beating NFL teams. You've had the best run you've had in 2 decades. That says something. I love that you laid it out that way, because however you're playing, whatever your faults are, we can't all be Patrick Mahomes. We can't all be Josh Allen. You have had success at this organization that we haven't seen in 2 decades. Therein lies the problem. What do you pay him? Because you cannot go give him a $50 million a year contract. I'm sorry. I don't care that quarterbacks mean everything. I would not pay him that money. I think on this scale, if we're looking, and I would be honest with Tua if I'm negotiating with him, I would say, look, Kirk Cousins makes $45 a year. Patrick Mahomes makes $45 a year. Josh Allen makes $43. Let's go down a little bit. Derek Carr makes $37. Baker Mayfield makes $33. Be like, Tua, we'll give you. Tua's going to want more than Derek Carr because he'll be like, I'm better than him. You know what I mean? Jared Goff makes $33.
He deserves it.
I think the $35 million a year range is fair. I wouldn't pay him over 40. I would not. I would say, Tua, we're not giving you over $40 million.
So let me cut you off right here and say, I believe that Tua can fight for more money now because he's learned to play safe also. That's a big part that a lot of people are overlooking, if you ask me. Because you look at last year, and Tua played a very safe football season, sometimes at fault. But the years before, I mean, we were talking about Tua not even making it this far and saying that he was made of glass and, constantly had injuries. He beefed up a little bit. He's playing safer. He's playing smarter. So I think there you don't have to worry about the injury proponent of this deal as much as you did, say, 2 years ago. So Tua's helped himself out there.
What do you think is a fair compensation? What would be your cap on your say? I'd give you this much a year, and because I think going over 40 is where you get into kind of silly territory.
Yeah, well, you do, but also you got to look at kind of where the quarterback market, the trajectory of the quarterback market, right? I think that he has a great argument to say that he should get paid more than Kyler Murray. Call me crazy, but Kyler Murray isn't doing anything except sucking up for the Cardinals right now. So tell me why Tua can't come in and say, okay, so you mean to tell me that I couldn't look over at Arizona and when Kyler's contract runs out, go get my money there? Because he probably could. What
leverage does Tua have? Because if Miami say I'm negotiating and I say, I'm not going to pay you over 40, and Tua says, well, great, I'll go somewhere else. Is there a team out there that would give him $45 million a year? Is there?
The New York Giants.
Well, you think?
I think so. I think the Giants would. I think
you're right.
It depends on how we'll find out in a few days, right? Where Miami goes and where the rest of the teams go in this draft. But whatever team is left without a quarterback or a first-round quarterback after Thursday, some of these teams would pick Tua up, no doubt, because you just look at the body of work.
Right.
The body of work speaks for itself.
No matter what his limitations are, regardless, it's like it's rich people problem, so to say. It's like it's easy to say these things when you got a quarterback and you're winning 11 games. But if Tua walks out that building, remember what Miami was before Tua and Mike McDaniel. They were completely irrelevant. So I think you do have to pay him, but you can't go overboard and give him a top contract. Someone has to stop these contracts constantly topping each other when they don't deserve it.
Exactly. And you made a great point. You said that not everybody can be a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow or a Josh Allen, right? Tua's always going to be the deadly accurate short field, midfield range quarterback, and he's always going to struggle with the long ball. He's gotten a little bit better, but he's going to struggle with that. That's just who Tua is. That's his MO. We got to accept that. So then you ask yourself, okay, is he the best of the second-tier quarterbacks? And I think there's an argument to be made that he is the upper echelon of the second-tier quarterbacks. I mean, look at who's better than him right now. You got your top three, your Burrow, well, top four really, because we're going to put Lamar in there now. Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson.
Justin Herbert's better than him. I know not success, but you would take him.
But
over
Justin Herbert is a second-tier quarterback. In my rating system, you have those four and then everybody else. And so everybody else is really the second tier until you get down to they really shouldn't even be playing quarterback. Like Daniel Jones, he shouldn't be a starter right now, just off of last season. I think there's teams out there like the Giants, like the Steelers. If they didn't get Justin Fields, they would have looked at Tua and said, well, that's a great replacement for Russell when he's done.
I mean, look at what Baker Mayfield's done in Tampa. Like, I think Tua is at least...
Would you rather have Tua or a Baker?
I think Tua, right? I think it's close. Absolutely. It's close. I like Baker more than most, but...
I love Baker's play style, but I think that Tua is more explosive in the fact that, like, he turns heads more, I think.
But the question there is... Has Mike McDaniel gotten all there is to get out of Tua? Like, if Tua goes somewhere else, I'm not sure he looks like this. Yeah, if he was with an Andy Reid or something, but if you put him with like a defensive head coach, Tua's not going to look like this. Brian Flores hated him, so it cost Brian Flores his job. He wouldn't even give Tua a chance. So that's kind of the thing they have to juggle is like, and I really think only Mike McDaniel knows that. I would, if I was the GM, I would trust Mike McDaniel, honestly, because I like him a lot. I would say, can we get to a Super Bowl with Tua, or do you need something better? And tell me what you think, and I'll go that route, and me and you will walk into unemployment together.